The Festival of Texas Fiddling is brought to you by Sherman & Company Realtors. Les Sherman offers more than 40 years experience in real estate with a focus on personalized customer service. Find out more at lesshermanrealestate.com. Texas music is fiddle music. The Festival of Texas Fiddling presents all types of fiddling the first weekend of December every year at historic Twin Sisters Dance Hall in Blanco, Texas. Find out more at thefestivalofTexasFiddling.org.
Welcome to the 6th Annual Festival of Texas Fiddling in 2020. We're streaming online because of the COVID pandemic. Next year we'll be back in person where we belong at the Twin Sisters Dance Hall in Blanco, Texas on the first weekend of December. Meanwhile, check us out on a new webpage, texasfiddle.org. You can subscribe to us here on YouTube, and you can follow us on Facebook and on Twitter, and you can keep in touch and find out about our goings-on over the year. We have music all day, a variety of fiddlers and fiddle styles from across the peoples and regions of Texas. It's going to be a really fun experience having this stream festival, and we really want to send thank you to Cullen Strong, who is our technical director and who made this stream festival possible. It turns out that there are so many moving parts and so much complexity to us that we really relied on him to pull it all together. So thanks, Cullen. Now, our first session that we're starting off today's events with is a version of what we do every year on our Texas Tradition stage. We have a session which is our most popular, actually the whole festival every year, which is called Texas Tune Travels. And the reason why we have that session is a few years ago, after the festival, we all hang out and play music all night and hang around a fire and have a good time. And the fiddlers who perform during the day start to swap tunes, as fiddlers do. And because they're all playing in different traditions, it very often came out that they would play a tune, they'd have a different name or a slightly different version of, and they had this sort of cross-cultural experience that only this small group of us got to witness, and it was always this incredible moment. Sometimes the most exciting music made the whole festival weekend. So we sought to harness that energy and bring it into the Texas Traditions stage every year in this Tune Travel section, and invite fiddlers in from across different styles and have them trade tunes and tell stories about their tunes. This year for the Stream Festival, we thought we'd do the same thing, but change it up a little bit by picking the tune ahead of time and throwing it out there to a bunch of different fiddles around the globe, because you can do that online a lot easier and cheaper than we can do it in person. So the tune we picked was Faded Love by Bob Wills, one of our favorites and a classic Texas tune. And we have a variety of fiddlers from around the globe playing this tune in their own version and on their own instruments. And we'll be starting out with Joe Weed, who is a documentary filmmaker and who's studied Texas music very intensely and made a film called Westphalia Waltz, which traces the origins of one of the most popular tunes played in Texas, unusual and unexpected origins, we should say, a film worth checking out. And we had Joe a few years ago at the festival for a session, and we're having him back now to perform, start our tune travels with Faded Love. And we're following that up with a fiddler from the Czech Republic, and I apologize if I mispronounce her name. It's Slávka Franclíková, who comes to us through our friend Lee Bidgood. There's a very strong Czech tradition in Texas. There are actually more Czechs in Texas than in any other state in the Union. And the Czech music tradition, the Czech fiddle tradition, is something that our festival has been working to help to present. And we actually had it scheduled this year for the online, for the in-person event we originally were going to have. So next year we'll be back, and we're planning to have a bunch of Czech music, especially on Sunday, on a polka Sunday. So put that on your calendar. And so Slávka's playing the tune. Then that's followed up by a group that comes out of Norway called Feleboga. They're playing it on a hardanger fiddle, which is a unique Norwegian style of fiddle that has drone strings. And Feleboga plays a bunch of kinds of Norwegian music. They also play a lot of American vernacular music, old-time music. And so these are real global musicians who are tied into traditional music culture We really appreciate their efforts. With this video, I should say that these performers have donated their time to the festival, and rather than get paid for it, they said, well, they'd rather give this money to musician relief here in Texas, helping traditional musicians affected by COVID. So we really appreciate their generosity and their talent and their time. And then the last musician we have playing it is Nicole Ge Li, who's playing a Chinese music tradition on an erhu, which is a 2-string spike fiddle. If you've never heard one, it's a beautiful instrument, and she is really among the world's best players. She's based in Canada currently, and so we're really fortunate to launch this year's festival with Faded Love.
Well, throw your coat in the corner.
That's right. Yeah. Stay all night, stay a little longer.
My granddad, because they'd ride their horses over here.
Perfect double string and just tears me apart. That's a little different version. What do you call that?
That's Nellie Gray.
Nellie Gray. How about that?
So it's basically the same tune.
That's probably where
You can hear it's a little different. Like
Yeah.
you said,
Yeah.
a perfect comment. Yeah, it's just,
that's may be where it come from.
I think
Well,
so.
yeah.
The original.
Gimbal told me that he learned that one from his brothers as a little boy.
To me, Faded Love, when I hear it, it's almost like it seems like the Texas national anthem. I mean, it really does make people stand at attention in this reverent way. I mean, if you're on a bandstand and you just start playing it, there's always like this hush.
Virtually every Western swing fiddler in Texas knows Faded Love, the iconic tune played by Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys. The story of Faded Love shows how Wills can be counted among the great American songwriters like A.P. Carter, Bill Monroe, and Woody Guthrie. They took melodies or fragments from existing folk songs and added something of their own, creating new music for their audience and time. Bob Wills, his father John, and grandfather Tom were all fiddlers who knew Darling Nellie Gray, a song that tells the heartbreaking story of an enslaved woman taken from her Kentucky home and sold to the owner of a Georgia cotton plantation. The song was written by Benjamin Hanby and published in 1856. When Hanby was a boy, his family lived in Rushville, Ohio, about 70 miles from the Ohio River. Their home was a station on the Underground Railroad. Apparently, in 1842, when Benjamin was 8 or 9 years old, an enslaved man named Joseph Selby reached Rushville on his underground escape to Canada, where he hoped to earn money to buy Nellie Gray's freedom. Selby, perhaps suffering from ill health after the long and perilous journey, died before he could leave Rushville. He was buried in the local cemetery. The Hanby family says that Benjamin's song commemorating Selby and Nellie was first performed in their parlor at one of their musical gatherings. Cornelia Walker, Hanby's music teacher, suggested that he submit it to a publisher. Hanby sent the manuscript to the Oliver Ditson Company in Boston. He didn't hear back from Ditson and assumed that the tune hadn't been accepted for publication. But eventually, his sister Anna heard the music sung in public. Ditson had indeed published it and had even registered the copyright in the company's name. The song became quite popular throughout the U.S., and Ditson made big money from the sheet music sales. Hanby contacted Ditson and asked for the customary composer's royalties. Ditson, the story goes, wrote back that Hanby got the fame and Ditson got the money, and that was the way things worked. Hanby hired an attorney who negotiated a one-time payment of $100 and kept half for himself. Supposedly, Ditson also sent Hanby 12 free copies of the sheet music, thus completing Hanby's compensation for writing Darling Nellie Gray. Bob Wills' grandfather, Tom, was born in northern Tennessee. He learned to fiddle and eventually moved to East Texas, surrounded by people singing and playing Darling Nellie Gray. The tune was popular on the frontier. Laura Ingalls Wilder wrote in Little House in the Big Woods that Pa Ingalls fiddled Darling Nellie Gray to help Laura fall asleep on Christmas Eve. Thomas Edison invented the phonograph in 1877, 21 years after Ditson first published Darling Nellie Gray. 3 years later, John Wills, father to Bob Wills, was born. The commercial development and widespread distribution of phonograph records changed the way Americans heard and learned music. Darling Nellie Gray shows up again and again as a favorite of both recording artists and the public. Sheet music publishers and their retail outlets had expanded greatly in the second half of the 19th century. Nellie Gray was readily available to grace the parlor or piano bench in the homes of a growing middle class in a country that was still largely rural. Here are just a few examples of sheet music and recordings of Darling Nellie Gray that were released before Bob Wills' 1950 MGM disc of Faded Love. But what about the Wills family? What did they say about Faded Love? Uncle John, as Bob Wills' father was known, died in 1952. Bob always credited his father for helping him write the tune. According to biographer Charles Townsend, Bob Wills had the royalty payments for Faded Love sent directly to his mother until she died. The story that Bob told, and that Townsend relates in his biography, is that John Wills took an old fiddle tune, changed it, and worked with Bob to turn it into Faded Love. I believe that the old fiddle tune they were referring to was Darling Nellie Gray.
And this is just a touch of our granddad's old tune. It's going to tie in, and it's going to be a little tune that people are already awful familiar with, because later on my baby brother Billy Jack wrote the words to it. But I just want to put a little of it on the old-timey way like my granddad used to play it, and it's called Faded Love.
You sure?
Bob Wills first heard his father, grandfather, and uncles play fiddle in the early years of the 20th century in the farm country where they lived near Cossie, Texas, southeast of Waco. The house is gone now, and cattle ranching has largely replaced cotton cultivation. The old fireplace and chimney of the Wills house, the well, and a few scattered bits of the house's skeleton remain, surrounded by grazing land and herds of cattle. By 1913, when the Wills family left Cossie to head west to Turkey, Texas, Darling Nellie Gray had gone through almost 60 years of publication and distribution. It had become a favorite folk song across the United States.
Now that's a little different version. What do you call that?
That's Nellie Gray.
Nellie Gray. How about that?
So it's basically the same tune.
That's probably where
You can hear it's a little different. Like
Yeah.
you said,
Yeah.
a perfect comment. Yeah, it's just,
that's maybe where it come from.
I think
Well,
so.
yeah.
The original.
Gimbal told me that he learned that one from his brothers as a little boy.
After World War II, as Bob Wills' touring and record sales began to wane, he needed a hit with a wide appeal. Darling Nellie Gray provided him with royalty-free material to work with. By simply changing one line of the melody and adding new lyrics by brother Billy Jack, Bob Wills created a warmly familiar new hit. Audiences and other performing artists responded well. In 1950, Bob Wills recorded Faded Love in Los Angeles for MGM. Wills played fiddle while Rusty McDonald sang lead. Johnny Gimbel and Keith Coleman played the background fiddles. The recording reached number 8 on the country music chart. Before we go, let's take one more glance into the past. Benjamin Hanby and the Wills family weren't alone in creating Faded Love. When he composed Darling Nellie Gray, Benjamin Hanby may have been doing exactly what the Wills family did decades later. Hanby stood on the shoulders of another writer whose song, Maggie May, was already in wide circulation, certainly in Great Britain and along the eastern seaboard of the United States. It was sung anywhere that sailors might go to let off steam after a long time at sea. We don't know how or when Maggie May might have reached Benjamin Hanby, but the coincidence of words and melody in the chorus is just too close to ignore. Here's Hanby's Darling Nellie Gray.
Oh, my poor Nellie Gray, they have taken you away, and I'll never see my darling anymore.
And here's Maggie May.
Oh, it's Maggie, Maggie May, they have taken you away to dwell upon my demon's cruel shore, 'cause you brought many away.
So the Faded Love we know today comes from a variety of people, places, and times. It was created partly in the recording studio, in rehearsals, in the Wills family homes in Cossie and Turkey, Texas, in the Ohio home of Benjamin Hanby, by an unknown tunesmith in Great Britain, and by dance hall fiddlers and bands in Texas. Let's listen again to Faded Love.
This is the 6th annual Festival of Texas Fiddling 2020. We're online, and I just want to send a thank you to our supporters, who are a variety of granting institutions, organizations, and individuals who love Texas music, love Texas fiddling, and want to support our nonprofit mission. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We're based in San Antonio. All donations are deductible, and everything goes into supporting musicians, fiddling, and doing work to support historical and contemporary Texas fiddling. So check us out online, texasfiddle.org. You can find out more about our organization, about our history, and about what we do building up to our big annual event, which is this festival. We are partnered with Texas Folklife. Every year we've done this. We've been supported this year by grants from Humanities Texas. We have very significant support coming from Les Sherman and from Sherman Company Realty, which is a big supporter of our organization and of Texas music, Texas fiddling, Texas dance hall culture, and we really appreciate the support, Les. We are supported by the Center for Popular Music from Middle Tennessee State University, which is the major archive for the study of popular music in America. Its director, Greg Reish, is a big friend of our festival. We not only are supported by him, but he also regularly is at the festival playing, backing up fiddlers, and we can kind of slot him in as we need him because he's such a good musician. So thanks, Greg, and thanks, CPM. HMN's Instruments has once again given us instruments that we can use to support the festival, and we encourage you to check them out. They're fine makers of a variety of string instruments that are used for different kinds of Latin music. And at the festival here, we really like to highlight the old school string band music of fiddle and bajo sexto, and so HMN is helping to support that onto future generations. We also want to thank all of the individuals who support us. Too numerous to name, but we have people who donate to the festival and help to keep the festival inexpensive and help us to fulfill our mission, which is to highlight the sustainability of Texas fiddle tradition. So find out more at texasfiddle.org, and we'll get on with our program.
My father's side of the family was very musical, and my grandfather, Thomas Jefferson Wooten was his full name, and he had a nickname Duck, but we always just called him Papa Wooten. But he played the fiddle. And my grandfather's tunes that had been recorded by my father, I didn't even know what the difference was, but I noticed a difference in the kind of music my grandfather played and the bluegrass fiddle style or the country fiddle style, but I didn't really have a name for what he played. I moved to Austin. At that time, I met one or two other fiddle players. He said, "Oh, he's playing old-time Appalachian style fiddle." I went, "Really?" I didn't know what it was called. I had no idea that it was an old-time Appalachian style. But I started listening then to the old-time Appalachian fiddlers. I said, "Yeah, that's what he was playing." Then I had a name for what he was playing.
I was raised by my grandmother. Her family all chopped cedar post, and so they lived in various camps. Every time they would be out there, since her mama and her mama's sisters had the most kids, everybody would come out after the day's work and play music. When I became a mother as a young woman, I started singing my kids a lot of the same songs and wanting to learn more about the music in the family and where it came from. And wanted to learn more, and so now here I am with him.
The advent of contest-style fiddling and Texas swing kind of pushed out the old-time Appalachian sound, because the fiddlers from the same families that would have been playing Appalachian style kind of switched over. For instance, Bob Wills, he was so popular that all the fiddlers wanted to play like Bob Wills' fiddlers did. And so they shifted over, and eventually not many people were playing the old Appalachian style anymore. That kind of got lost in Texas, except for little pockets, you know, like my grandfather was a pocket, and there were other little pockets, little people here and there that played that old style. When they took Papa Wooten to a fiddle contest when he was an older man, he didn't win anything, and afterwards they asked him about it, and he said, well, those are all finger men, and I'm a bow man.
The rhythm, I mean, it is so bow-oriented, and it's a very different bow hand than classical or contest or any other type of fiddling to get that rhythm going.
When I first started learning some of those tunes of my grandfather's, I didn't know anything about alternate tuning, you know, so I was playing them all out of G, D, A, E.
Oh my goodness.
And it was very difficult. If you're not tuned the same as the person you're learning from, it makes it hard to learn.
Contest style and Western swing both focus mainly on tunes and the regular G, D, A, E tuning, whereas old time gets way out of the box. And you get all kinds of really interesting combinations to be able to allow you to have a drone string, and makes playing a lot easier, to be honest. At times it can, you know, and just a fuller sound.
Little rabbit, where's your pappy? Little rabbit, where's your pappy? Little rabbit, where's your pappy? He died, it was so happy.
The best part about this apprenticeship has just been the tunes are amazing, but also the history and the connection with the tunes, you know. It's really special when you have a family that plays music together. It's a connection that is indescribable, and to be able to have these tunes to share with my sons and everyone else is a really special thing to me too.
Yes, it's been really fun teaching Alexa because she is a very quick learner. It's been good for me because I have to slow down the tunes and actually figure out what I'm doing, because a lot of times I'm playing the tune but I don't know what I'm doing or how I'm doing it. So it's been a wonderful experience because of the fact that she's a quick learner and practices, and it's helping my fiddling.
Growing up as a kid, you know, coming from cedar choppers, it's a lot of poverty, and I definitely didn't have money to have lessons as a kid. If they weren't offered at school, I wouldn't have been able to have it. Being able to share that with kids that are interested is very important to me, you know, for people to be able to learn, regardless if they can pay or not, is very important, you know, because I don't feel like a kid should have to be held back just because they can't pay, you know, because really that's what this is all about, is being able to keep this going for other generations, to be able to share this history and this music.
Little rabbit, where's your cousin? I've got 'em by the dozen.
Texas Folklife is a statewide nonprofit organization dedicated to the preservation, continuation, and celebration of traditional art forms that reflect the diverse cultural heritage of the Lone Star State. Since 1984, we have honored the cultural traditions passed down within Texas, serving as the National Endowment for the Arts state-designated folk arts agency and supporting the folk and traditional arts through a variety of public programs, exhibits, performances, and other events. Our flagship programs, The Big Squeeze, Accordion Kings and Queens, Apprenticeships in the Folk and Traditional Arts, and Stories from Deep in the Heart, demonstrate the high level of quality programming our organization provides. Since 2007, our Big Squeeze statewide youth accordion contest has seen more than 300 talented young accordionists from dozens of communities across the state compete for grand prizes in 3 main accordion genre categories: polka, Cajun and Zydeco, and Tejano Conjunto. 12 finalists are invited each year to the Texas State History Museum in Austin to compete and participate in master classes and mentoring sessions with the help of master accordionists such as 2017 NEA Heritage Fellow Eva Ibarra, accordion phenom Alex Meixner, and Grammy Award winners Joel Guzman and Max Baca. The Big Squeeze Showcase has been a central point of our annual Accordion Kings and Queens concert, held every June at the Miller Outdoor Theater in Houston. Celebrating its 30th anniversary in 2019, over 6,000 accordion music fans gather each year to hear the masters of Texas accordion music. Texas Folklife's apprenticeships in the Folk and Traditional Arts program provide support for experienced master artists to train qualified apprentices in a traditional art form through intensive in-person education over a period of several months, with 42 apprenticeships supported since the program's full-scale revival in 2016, thanks to an NEA State Arts Partnership grant in conjunction with TCA. Stories from Deep in the Heart is our award-winning in-depth folklore and audio documentary training program for Texas public school students and teachers and community members. We teach participants to create short, broadcast-quality audio documentaries and podcasts on the stories, folklore, arts, and traditions of their families and communities. Texas Folklife also collaborates with local nonprofit organizations and community partners to address relevant topics through community-driven storytelling projects. Thanks to a recent award from the NEA Creative Forces Military Healing Arts Network, Texas Folklife is undertaking a military veterans folklore and storytelling project in summer 2019.
Hi, I'm Barbara Lynn, and I'm from Beaumont, Texas, and I am a singer, songwriter, and guitarist, and I am an NEA National Heritage Fellow.
Texas Folklife is nationally recognized as a presenter of the highest caliber folk and traditional artists of our state. We collaborate with the NEA and National Council for the Traditional Arts to highlight Texas-based NEA Heritage Fellows like Barbara Lynn and Eva Ibarra, while our performances at the Library of Congress and Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. put Texas artists on the national stage. Our public gallery in Austin hosts several exhibits and house concerts each year, showcasing the breadth and depth of Texas culture, while also serving as an intimate music venue for traditional music performances, film screenings, and educational workshops. Over the past several years, Texas Folklife has worked with partners like the UT School of Information Sciences and Briscoe Center for American History, as well as the American Folklore Society, to organize and digitize 30-plus years of rich archival material in our collection. Texas Folklife also produces film and long-form radio projects, including the Big Squeeze documentary film, our Border Radio theatrical radio production series, and a 2017 short documentary film about Santa Muerte, the controversial Mexican folk saint with a growing presence in Texas. Texas Folklife works closely with our partners to collaborate on a multitude of public programs, including the annual polka extravaganza, Polka Apocalypse, at the Austin Elizabeth Ney Museum, and the Festival of Texas Fiddling at Blanco's historic Twin Sisters Dance Hall. We also serve as a fiscal sponsor to local individual artists and groups, including the Austin Belly Dance Convention and the Wapangos Sin Fronteras Music Festival. On local, statewide, and national platforms, Texas Folklife showcases the outstanding diversity of traditional art, culture, and heritage from the Lone Star State. We thank you for your support.